Hey, good evening. I'm trying again. Good evening. There we are. And welcome to the school informational meeting. To all of you who are here in Damon Hall, and those of you who are online, I'm Matt Dunn. I am the school moderator and will be moderating this informational meeting. The process is going to be, we're going to do introductions of the members of the school board as well as our school leadership. We're then going to go through the articles, which I will read from the slides on the screen, but it is a part of the process. As I think everyone here knows, we are not voting on the school budget here at the school informational meeting. We will be doing that on Tuesday by Australian ballot, which is the same day as town meeting, where we are voting on the town budget in town meeting from the floor. We're going to go all the way through the articles. We're going to go through the presentation of the budget. And unless there is a burning question about the articles, which are not particularly exciting, we'll just keep carrying through until the budget presentation is finished. And then we will take questions. There is a microphone up here, which we will be inviting people who have questions to come up and ask the question. As is tradition, I will first look to folks who are here in the room. I will then ask that people who have already asked a question wait until everyone else who would like to ask a question has had the chance to do so, including folks who are online. So we'll go first round of questions here. We'll then ask folks who are online if they have a question to ask their question, and then we'll go to a second round of questions if people have follow-ups to those questions. Does that make sense to everyone? Right? Good? Okay. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Nikki to introduce herself and to allow the rest of the school leadership to introduce themselves. The one thing I will also say, our audio is a little challenged. So when you're speaking, the mic needs to be on with the red light on. When you are not speaking, you need to turn it off, otherwise we'll get feedback with this particular setup. The other is, whether or not you have a strong voice, you must use the microphone, because otherwise people who are online cannot hear you. So it is helpful for those of us here, especially if you have a softer voice, but it is critical to make sure that the folks who are online are able to participate as well. So with that, I will turn it over to the school board chair.
I was just going to take it. Are you waiting for it to transfer? Okay, I am Nicole, otherwise known as Nikki Buck. Been a resident of Hartland now for 25 years. And I think I've been the board chair for the last 9 years. Going through some difficult times right now, and I appreciate that all of you guys are out here. So I'll introduce the rest of the board.
Hi, Beth Roy. I'm vice chair of the board, and I think maybe forcing me to think about how long I've been here. I think at least 20 years. No, I've been on the board more than 8, or at least 8 years. Yeah. In Hartland for around 20.
Hello, I'm Hannah Ben-Simone. I am a Hartland native, was away for a while, been back for 3 years, and been on the board for 2 years.
I'm Ryan Pesanowski. I have been a Hartland resident for only 3 years, and I've been on the board for 1.
I'm Heather Veneta. I've been a Hartland resident, 2013, 12 years. And I've been on the board, this is my third year.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Perkins. I get to be the principal at Hartland Elementary School.
Good evening, I'm Christine Bourne, and I get to be the superintendent of Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union.
I'm Larry Dower, I'm the CFO of the Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union.
There we go. Okay, so what we're going to do now is whoever is running the slides, we're going to go through the articles. So, and these are the articles that are printed, should be in the town report. Article 1, which is to act on reports of the Hartland School District officers for the past year from July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2024, which will be by Australian ballot. Article 2, to elect the Hartland School District officers for the ensuing term, which will also be on the ballot on Tuesday. Article 3, to vote that the Hartland School District is authorized to borrow money, I think it is in anticipation of taxes to meet the requirements of the school district for the ensuing year, and to authorize execution and delivery of notes or orders to the school district. Article 4, shall the voters of the Hartland School District approve the school board to expend $11,225,926, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. The Hartland School District estimates that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in per pupil education spending of $17,507.96, which is 7.63% higher than per pupil's education spending for the current year. And Article 5, to transact any other business which may properly come before the meeting. Those are your articles. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the chair of the school board to lead the school budget discussion and report. I should have said this before, but there are members of the school leadership, not the school board, but school leadership, who are not residents of the town of Hartland, and without objection, we will allow them to address both the report as well as questions that may come up. Okay, great.
Okay. So quickly, we wanted to look at the strategic plan. So this is what guides how we make our decisions for the school board. And the strategic plan is shared with the Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union, so we all work together towards a common goal. And it helps us share resources and share a lot of things, trainings and everything that we need in order to function well together. So next slide. So this is a summary page of our strategic plan. The strategic plan provides a direction for the redesign of the overall educational experience for students. We really want students to be the drivers. The three primary goals in our strategic plan is student success and engagement, having kids that want to come to school and are excited to learn. Information and communication, tonight being a communication and information night, but reaching out to our community and informing people of what's happening at the school. And then culture and student wellness. Our students, as you may have heard in the news, are in the midst of, students nationally, also in Hartland, are in the midst of kind of a mental health crisis in our younger children, and so it's really important that we focus on student wellness. We've also developed, through the strategic planning process, 5 core competencies that we want our kids to graduate our schools from. The first being empathy, and then second, perseverance, integrity, communication, and critical thinking. So beyond just the work that we do in the classroom, we feel like those 5 topics are important to be leaders in the community when they leave our buildings. And we also want our students to be the voice, and that was really important to our community. So next slide. So I had this slide pulled together in response to a comment that was brought up at this meeting last year. Somebody at the meeting thought that Hartland was a really small school and that we were a really small community. Hartland is the 5th largest community in Windsor County, and we're tied with the next 3. So if you look, we've got Hartford is the first one, and then Springfield is the 2nd largest, and then Norwich, Windsor, and Hartland are the next 3. We're all within 200 people of each other. And then we follow down to Chestertown and Wethersfield, all the way down through. And I felt like it was really important to note that we are not, we're a small community, we're in Vermont,
But we're not small by the standards of Vermont, and we're not small by the standards of Windsor County. We're a large community. We just don't have a very large business center, so people think we're a small community. And I felt like that was important for everyone to understand. So next slide. And yep, and this is when I turn it over to Lindsay.
Thank you, Nikki. So I will walk us through a little bit of fiscal year 2026, but I'll start, Michael, if you go to the next slide, I'll start with the large budget goals that we have when we start putting our budget together. The goal is to maintain a staffing plan and program of studies that supports each child intellectually, social, emotionally, as well as physically. In addition to that, making sure that we bring forward to voters a fiscally responsible budget that meets educational quality standards, and in our educational world, we refer to that as EQS, and considers all doing that while being really mindful of the impact that it does make on taxpayers. So I wanted to bring it back a little bit and talk about the last couple years before we talk about the upcoming fiscal year. So in school year 22-23, there was one full-time educator cut. And when we cut a full-time educator, that is salary as well as benefits for that person. Then the last school year that we had, the 2023-2024 school year, we made reductions of a playground, 2 full-time educators, furniture, as well as lockers throughout the building. So I wanted to highlight that while, emphasizing that we work really hard to create a budget that meets the needs of all students while being very mindful of community taxpayers. And the next slide, Michael, if you could. And the cuts that we are proposing for this next year include the funding for winter activities. The intent from the school's perspective is to continue to offer those while looking for grant and other opportunities to fund for students that might need that financial support. But in terms of local dollars, those dollars would be removed from the budget. We would remove $10,000 of teacher supplies. That does not, that is a piece of it. That does not certainly remove teacher supplies altogether. It removes $5,000 in furniture and fixtures. It removes $12,000 in repair and maintenance. And then on the right-hand side, you will see some more staffing-related reductions. Those reductions include a custodian, a currently staffed physical education teacher, or PE teacher, and a currently staffed K through 5 teacher. And what that does in terms of just the personnel cost, that piece on the bottom right-hand corner, that is the total staff salary cuts of $310,468, and that's important to note that that is positions as well as benefits, not just salaries for those individuals. Okay, Nikki, I think it's back to you.
Okay, so we looked briefly at the pieces of the budget that are under our control and the cuts that we chose to make. A large portion of our budget is not within our control, and we feel like it's important to highlight those things. So you can go to the next slide. So this is our first slide, is our high school tuition. We are a tuitioning town. We send our schools to other high schools. We are at the mercy of what those high schools want to charge us. And it varies by where we send them. But the average cost per student is $23,234. I've been looking at high school tuition rates and talking to our legislators. High school tuition on the eastern side of Vermont tends to be more expensive than other areas of the state. And so it's not like we can point to one school and say, well, that school is doing this. Like, all of the schools are more expensive than the rest of the state. We are seeing an increase in $88,096, which is a 2.8% increase, and we're losing approximately 3 students between this current fiscal year, 25, and next year. So, and the reason that we have 0.89 students is related to tech school equivalents. Students turn into decimal places when they go to the tech school, so I can't really explain that further, but I'm sure Larry could if we had to get into the weeds on that one. So we'll go to the next slide. Benefits is also a challenging place for us to control. One of the larger increases is that we're seeing a 12% increase in, we're seeing, what was the increase in health insurance? Was it? Yeah, so that is, okay, I was thinking that wasn't that. So we're seeing a almost 12% increase in health insurance. That's negotiated at a state level. And we have no control over that. We just have to pay it. And that's a big hit every year that we just have to take. Here you can see that we have an increase in our benefit costs of $18,674. That is a smaller increase because we have cut 3 positions in the building, so we will no longer be paying benefits for those 3 positions. So in that way, we have some control, but we don't have control over the increase in benefits for each person that we have. So we'll go to the next slide. I have to go to the next slide. Okay. It's not changing. So then the SU assessment, we share a lot of resources at the supervisory union, and we've continued to grow how many resources we share at the supervisory union. Because the supervisory union serves multiple schools, it does provide us with a little bit of cost savings. Like our computers go through the supervisory union now, so all of our students have Chromebooks, and so they can buy Chromebooks in a bulk rate for all of the schools. We also do some of our maintenance services through the supervisory union. All of our food services go through the supervisory union. And then the state is mandated that special education go through the supervisory union, and that is the largest portion of our increase at 6.3%. And then administration and operations accounts for 3% of our total 9.3% increase, and so at the supervisory union, we're seeing an increase of $258,084. There's also early childhood education that's run at the supervisory union level. So next slide. I need to look at Michael. I keep looking down at these guys. So wages, again, are negotiated at the supervisory union level so that all the teachers in the supervisory union, they're all on the same contract. This year, we have a 5% salary increase. I want to point out that this salary increase is not a direct, like everybody sees 5%. Part of the salary increase is to improve the salary structure for some of our younger, more junior teachers so that they get more fair wages. So did I explain that well enough? Yeah, so because we're cutting 3 positions, we only have an increase of $10,167. And that's it for that slide. So our total budget is a 2.52% increase for $275,000, and then $898. I'm not very good at reading numbers. So that is where all of those numbers come from, and those are the factors that we don't have a lot of control of. The main things that we do have control over is our program and how many teachers and people we have in the building, which we're choosing to decrease this year by 3 people. So next we'll go to our enrollment. So you can see here that these are the last 4 years. We have been fluctuating. This current school year, we're down slightly from the previous year, but we anticipate, based on future enrollment, that we'll be popping back up. So it'll just go up and down a little bit. And again, you can see that we've graduated some larger classes out of our high school. So those numbers are also fluctuate. And that's where we are as a community. Next slide. And is this my last slide? Yeah. So we wanted to show you what the budget would look like if we had continued with the same program that we had this current year, the one that we're operating under. So if we had continued with that budget, we would have had an $11,697,892, which would have represented a 6.8% budget increase, and it would have been a 14.5% tax increase. And the school board thought that that was untenable for all of us and all of you. We looked hard at what different cuts we could make and came up with what we're proposing today, which is to make the cuts to the materials essentially in the building, cuts to winter activities, and then the 3 positions that we outlined, which is a current PE teacher, a current classroom teacher, and a current custodian. With that change, we end up with the budget that we have shown, which is a 2.52% increase. However, that when it goes through the complicated Vermont tax formula, ends up at a 6.1% tax increase. And with that, I think I turn it over to Christine.
So I wanted to share our budget book with you. It's you have copies, and we brought copies here. If you don't have one, it's accessible on our website, and also you can scan the QR code if you want to look at it closely. It goes line by line. There's lots of information in the book about enrollment trends and funding sources and laws around funding in Vermont. So I encourage you to take a look at it. We're happy to answer questions about anything in it if you have them. But we are not going to go through the entire budget line by line tonight. We've done that at our board meeting. So the next slide is a slide. We often have questions from people about what percentage of your tax dollars are going towards your local budget and which amount is going towards the SU budget. So this is a graphic that shows that out of every $100, 73.4% or $73 goes to your local budget, and the rest of it goes towards the assessments at the SU level. And that's early childhood, food service, admin and operations, and special education. Special education is that green sliver, which is the largest sliver because our special ed budget at the SU level is the largest one and supports the kids that need special education. The last slide is just a summary of the budget total, the percent increase of 2.52, what that's going to look like for your tax rate, and wanted to point out that on the ballot it will say that your per pupil ed spending increase is 7.63, and that is up over last year, and we are required by law to put that on the ballot so people know that, but that is not your anticipated tax rate, so we just wanted to be clear about that. I can announce that the governor has discussed or proposed a one-time buy down of $77 million to the legislature, and if that is approved, that will change your tax rate to 4.7 instead of 6.1. I believe that is not passed the legislature yet, but we are anticipating that it likely will. So I just wanted to announce that as well tonight. And I think the next slide is that me? This slide is I can take this one. This is the people want to know, what does this mean for me and for my tax bill? So we've assessed out what the tax impact is for various home values. So in the middle, around a $250,000 home will have an annual change in their tax bill of $353 with the proposed increase, the estimated increase of 6.1% tax increase. Goes back to Nikki. Yeah.
So our last slide is the voting information. So it will be by Australian ballot a week from tomorrow on the 4th, and the hours will be from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So we're hoping that and expecting that all of you come out and vote. And I think at this point we'll open it up to questions.
We're doing well with the microphone logistics. So thank you guys. All right, so I want to open it up for questions for folks who are residents and are in the room and have questions about the budget and for the school board. Any specific questions? Okay. All right. Well, we will go to online questions. So, who is in a position to? Do you want to hand the mic down so someone can read out loud what the questions? Oh, they can speak. They can turn off their. They can take themselves off of mute and ask the question. Okay. So, who are we going to recognize first? Tony Vendetti. Okay. Tony, can you share your question, please? Tony, if you can hear us, we can't hear you, and so if you can take yourself off of mute. Tony, if you could put into the chat what your question is. Apologies that the.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us now?
Great. Tony, you are unmuted now if you want to try asking your question.
All right, this is her husband, David Singer. There was some talk last year about school resource officer. I assume that's a non-existent position this year?
Okay, David, it is. It is still in the budget.
Yeah. And how much are we spending? Do you know?
It's 40,000, around $40,000 in contracted services.
And who is it
Because they're not an
contracted with?
employee. It's contracted with Windsor PD.
I'm wondering why, since a lot of the patrol work is done by the county sheriffs, who have agreed to it, to something that they, since I'm retired, I no longer have financial control over the sheriff's department at all. But Sheriff Palmer's agreed that they could have officers stop by on a fairly routine basis. Whether that's enough to supplant an actual resource officer, I don't know, but I think we ought to enter in some conversation, unless a contract's been signed already, of course, but it's $40,000.
Thank you, David. We can look into that. We've been really happy with the contract that we have with the Windsor Police Department. They've been very responsive, and the school resource officer is very well known in our building. And so at this point, we've voted to have it in this budget, and we can enter into conversations with the sheriff's department in the future. But yeah, it has to, Windsor is guaranteeing us a response time, and when we were in previous conversations, we could not get a guaranteed response time. And things have changed, but right now we're continuing to hold the Windsor PD contract.
That's fine. I'm just curious.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Are there other questions from folks who are online? No? That's the only question. All right. Any other questions from folks who are here at Damon Hall? Okay. if you could grab that mic, this is how we're going to do this. Turn it on and.
Snippenberg, and I'd just like to say, again, it's been really hard times for you folks and how much I appreciate the work that you've put in doing this. There's not much, it's clear there's not much room to move here with it, and trying to work with something that's pretty impossible is a pretty hard task. So I would like to speak for some folks and say thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Yes, please.
I was just wondering if you, how many, oh, sorry, Marion Comstock. If you're cutting a PE teacher, do we still have a PE teacher? So how many do we have?
We had 2 PE teachers, and we now have 1 PE teacher. It will mean, it has impacts, for sure. It will mean that PE class sizes may have to grow pretty significantly, and it will also potentially mean that we will have more limited offerings for what our middle school students can do for electives, because we won't have the bandwidth for them to take a fitness elective. So we'll have 1 PE teacher teaching 200 and, yeah. Oh, and we may also not have a health class. So that's what that cut made, but we decided that we had to do it. We'll have 1 PE teacher teaching 240 kids. So.
Any additional questions? Yep, Gordon? Yep, please.
Okay, I'm Gordon Richardson. I noticed you had a significant cut in winter programs. Does that mean, I don't know if you still have ski runners or not, but is that staying or going?
So we do plan to still have ski runners. We, as a board, made an investment because we thought it would be equitable for all kids to access ski runners, and that dramatically increased the program. But we now need to take back that equity investment to help with our taxes. So that's what that change is. There will still be ski runners, but we will not be able to, we're hoping to still find ways through grants and other ways to help students that may not have access. But that is the funding that's going away, is to help all students have access.
Clearly stated, parents will need to pay for ski runners.
Parents will need to pay the full price. I have one more. Okay, so one of the challenges that you may have noticed in our budget is that our high school tuition, so one of the challenges that we've hit this year is that they've reintroduced the per pupil spending cap and have penalized communities that go over the per pupil spending cap. So that's extremely challenging to the community of Hartland, because we have no control over our 9 through 12 education costs. We just have to fork out the money to a school. And so in order to get under...
What the spending cap is?
The spending cap is the calculation of how much you can spend.
What's the dollar amount?
Oh, it's 15,000 something.
So if you look
Yeah.
at the cost of
if you look at the costs of the high schools that are charging us, it is excessive over the spending cap that we are expected to stay under.
Yeah, and so the average statewide high school cost is $18,900, and our average high school cost is $23,500. So we're paying a lot more than the state average, and we're also on top of that being penalized. And so the reason that the tax rate is rising so much higher than our budget increase is because of that penalty that we're paying for something that we have no control over. So I have been extremely frustrated about this and also very vocal. And in response, one of our state legislators, our representatives, Elizabeth Burrows, has written a bill which is extremely short but to the point. And so I just wanted to read her bill. And if you agree with her bill, to please contact the education committee in the legislature and tell them that you support this bill and that you find it unfair that we're being penalized for something that we have no control over. So here is the meat of the bill. This bill is proposed to limit the tuition rate charged by receiving public schools to the average announced tuition of the union elementary schools or union high schools as applicable. It would also prohibit a receiving public school from charging sending school districts any additional fees for special education, available reservation, or other fees that cannot be accounted for. This bill also proposes to eliminate tuition paid by a non-operating school district from the district's education spending for the purposes of calculating the excess spending pursuant to VSA 540112. So that's the whole bill. So there are a couple of different ideas in there. One is to force receiving schools to take the state average. Another is there are fees that some of our receiving schools charge in excess of what they should be. And these are problems that other sending schools are dealing with elsewhere in the state. And then to also take that out of our per pupil spending calculation because it only hurts our middle school and elementary school students. So I just wanted to share that. Please, if you support that, contact the Education Committee. Thank you. $199. Oh, it's Bill 199, H 199.
There are no more questions and no more business before us. Hope everyone will come out and vote on Tuesday and attend town meeting on Tuesday during the day. Thank you so much for coming out, and we are adjourned.